I'm John, and this is my testimony, and it's one of those things that it's not that I'm struggling for something to say. It's just I'm trying to be succinct with it. I'm trying to be keep it down to a sort of fairly short period rather than sort of do the whole autobiography. I think for me, my testimony it's a testimony of God's persistence. I think that's really what it boils down to for me. God touched me at various times in my life, and it wasn't just the once, that I, met God and that was it for the rest of my life. It wasn't. I think I spent an awful lot of my time actually running away from God. But he was always there when I needed him. Even sometimes when I didn't really know I needed him. I was born a Catholic, and that might not really mean too much to you, but I was born a Catholic in the west of Scotland, and in the west of Scotland, Catholics and Protestants, it's a bit like Northern Ireland, they really don't get on very well. And the first time I actually realised I was a Catholic was when I went to primary school, and all my friends went to the school across the road. But I didn't. I got marched past that and I marched another half-mile away. But I became an altar boy and when I was quite young, and that made me really feel that I had a vocation. I felt that God had called me. He called me to become a priest. And so off I went to a seminary. I was 13 years old. My mother was very much against it. She said I was far too young, but I was determined, and I got the parish priest who got the bishop, and they ganged up on her, and lo and behold, I went off to the seminary. So I was in this seminary, and I loved it because I'd grown up as an only child, and all of a sudden I've got about 180 brothers all round about me, and for me it was a great life. And then I got to puberty and thought, I'm not too sure about the celibacy thing. And as soon as I expressed that, that was it. I was sort of packed off, sent home. Because the last thing they wanted was somebody wandering about in the seminary, spreading dissent. So off I went. And I went back to an ordinary school, and for a wee while I would go back and forward and go to Mass, and then people kept calling me St. John and Holy Willie and all sorts of names, and I then went out of my way to show them that that wasn't the case. So I started smoking, I was drinking very early, and I became a bit of a rebel. Not in big ways, but I was banned from every class except religious education, which was compulsory, because I just didn't want this label of being Holy Willie. But also I felt as if something was missing from my life, because I'd had an ambition, I had a goal for my life, which was to become a priest, and now that was gone. So my life felt really empty. In fact, the only thing I wanted to be when I left school was a former pupil. That was it. That was my only ambition. Round about late teens, early 20s, I decided that I was going to hit the hippie trail to India. I got as far as Devon, and then I met two things that I fell in love with. One was Scrumpy, and the other one was Lou, who became my wife. A long time later, but she became my wife. And while I was down there, I was drinking very, very heavily at the time. I was taking a lot of drugs, and there was a kind of hippie stroke. It was the time of the Jesus movement, and there was a kind of hippie Jesus commune, which was just outside of Sidmouth. And they drove past me and they asked me if I would like somewhere to stay for the night. And I thought, yeah, fine, because I was sleeping on the beach. And I went up there and I got ambushed. And they all got round about me and they started to tell me about Jesus and how I should become a believer, and I was having none of it. I really didn't want. I'd been there, I'd done that, and I didn't want anything to do with it, you know. So I was defending myself from my knowledge of the Bible, which I have to say wasn't very much, but mostly from my cynicism. The next day, Lou said, you know, would you mind talking to my dad? So I said, yeah, fine. Her dad was a local pastor, so I went and spoke to him. We went down the bottom of the garden under this apple tree, and all of a sudden I found myself round about his ankles crying like a baby. Now, to this day, I have absolutely no idea what he said. But all I know was that I felt this like a rushing wind coming through me, and it felt cleansing, it felt scary, it felt wonderful, I just was blown away by it. And for a while I lived with these people, and Lou and I sort of got together, and you know, and we had a bit of a relationship for a while, and then we split up, and I went back to Scotland. I joined a charismatic church in Scotland, and I went there for a wee while, and one day I met an old friend coming down the road, and he said, we're going to the pub. We've got some money and we've got some dope. You fancy coming with us? And I thought about it for all of about 30 seconds and said, oh yeah, why not? And that was the start of possibly one of the worst times in my life, because I got heavier and heavier into alcohol, heavier and heavier into dope and drugs, and I became a real mess. I got married during this time, and it really was a disaster for her anyway. You know, I mean, I really didn't treat her very well, and you know, I was drinking all the time, and it was a mess. I ended up getting into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 34 at the time, and she had left. I was living by myself in a flat that looked as if the bin men made deliveries. I mean, it was a disaster area. And then I went to AA, and I really wanted to get sober, but I didn't know how to. And people kept telling me, God, that's the answer. In the program, a higher power. So there was one night, my head was exploding. I was desperate to drink. I'd been to 2 AA meetings that day and another one in the evening, and still I was desperate for a drink. But I didn't want to drink. That was the thing. I didn't know how to not drink. For the first time, I really didn't want to. And I remember I sort of looked all round about to make sure nobody was watching me. I looked in the wardrobe, and then I said the most fervent prayer I've ever said in my life. And that was, God, help me. Now, at the time, it felt as if nothing very much happened. But I got into bed and I slept. And then I talked to somebody the next day. And they said, do you feel like a drink? And I said, no. Have you had a drink? And I said, no. And from that day till now, I have never felt like a drink. Although I thought nothing very much happened, God was there. He met me. He met me in my time of greatest need. Yeah. And I would love to say from that time on, we had a great relationship. We didn't. We didn't have a great relationship. Although he had turned up in my life, I had little more than a sort of cursory relationship with him. Yeah. But that was to come later, that I would become a full relationship with him. And I'll tell you about that in the next video. In the meantime, thank you.